And alrighty, everybody, we are back at it again with another episode of Combat and Cryptids. God, this weather just sucks, doesn't it? Well, but it is Friday. That's good. We got that going for us. You know, the weekend's ahead of us. I already had the day off, so I just been out shopping. I say shopping. It was more Sam's Club and Meijer. That's about it. But now we're done. And yeah, this is what we're doing this evening. I mean, well, at least for the next hour. Well, I'm gonna record this, and then we'll probably try and edit it and see if we can do some different things with the video and stuff like that. So I hope you guys appreciate the time and the effort I'm trying to put together to make sure we make a good podcast, I guess. Yeah. So, but other than that, everybody, let's get into this thing, shall we? So, like always, everybody, appreciate everybody likes, comments, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. We're slowly getting up there. I'm not in any hurry or anything like that, but every week, regardless, every video that I put out, there's always, it just creeps up a little more and a little more, or it stays the same, which is always good. You lose a follower, you gain 5. So the give and take is always is pretty good. So I can deal with that. If you guys have noticed, how do you point to this over here? This is, I don't know what this plant is called. My wife is really big on plants and all this stuff, but when she had this one made, let me see if I can get on the shot on this. She had this one made, and she stamped it with the name, with the Combat and Cryptid. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I did pick out the plant, though, just FYI. It was me who picked the plant out, so not saying I'm good. I'm just saying, it was all me. But anyways, so she likes to showcase all these like weird plants and stuff like that because she's becoming a crazy plant lady. But it's all good. I like plants, so I can deal with it for now. But other than that, let's get into today's episode. So today I'm gonna have, I got a few. I always have like on my table here. I have all kinds of just papers of just random hodgepodge stories. They could be short stories, long stories, whatever it is. So the first thing we're going to start off with is called, now I think I'm saying this correctly, but it looks like, but it's called the Fouke, the Fouke monster of Boggy Creek has been terrifying people and eating pets for years. And this was written by Tucker. I don't know his last name. So, yeah, I'd never heard of this dude. Or this kind of it's kind of like a Bigfoot, I guess, or like a Yeti. It kind of looks like a hybrid between like a Bigfoot and like a Dogman kind of thing, because like its teeth are different and stuff like that, but the same height and everything, like a Bigfoot and a Dogman type thing. So we'll go over this little bit of tidbit of information about him, and then we got 2 different terrifying encounters with a Bigfoot. So yeah, one in southern Texas and then one in Lincoln, Illinois. We'll go over that. And those are kind of just short, so depending on how far that goes, everyone seems to be digging, like, I guess not digging, but it's more interesting of like the like creatures and like ghost stories and stuff like that. But everybody likes to always come back to, the Bigfoot and Dogman, like the original, like the OG cryptids. So that's what we'll kind of just talk about today, and then we'll go from there and see how much the time goes for. So yeah, let's get into this thing. So, with sightings dating back to the 18... Now, one thing I did want to mention, like, I want to get like this and, like, have it here. Or maybe I just get, like, a tablet or something so I can stop having to deal with this damn paper, because I'd rather look, like, at you as I'm talking with, like, whatever's on the side. But it kind of is what it is right now, but we'll just deal with that. But that's what some things that I'm looking to try and change differently, I guess, for the whole show and everything like that. So, yeah. But bear with me, people. Oh, God. I'm dying. Not really. But so with sightings dating back to the 1800s, the legend of the Fouke monster of Boggy Creek is an important part of Arkansas's folklore. Lurking in the bogs of Arkansas, the Fouke monster frightens motorists, homeowners, and hikers. The story of Boggy Creek and the monster who may inhabit it were subject of the 1972 cult classic, The Legend of Boggy Creek. The central story was based on testimonies from Arkansas natives recounting their terrifying stories from Arkansas. The Fouke monster facts vary, as no definitive evidence of the creature actually exists. It's said to be tall, hairy, and potentially dangerous, much like a Bigfoot. The first widely publicized sighting occurred in 1971, although the monster had been whispered of previously. Even today's residents of Fouke, Arkansas, or visitors somehow see what they believe is the monster. Is this a hoax or a legitimate creature roaming the Arkansas bogs? We shall see. We shall see. So in 1971, the monster allegedly attacked a family inside their home. While early sightings date back to the 1800s, the story that put the Boggy Creek Monster on the map occurred much later. Bobby and Elizabeth Ford reported the monster attacked their home on May 1st, 1971. See, all the time. 1960s, 1970s, when aliens, Bigfoot, all this shit started coming out. So weird how all this stuff started happening around the same time. Within like a 10-year period. Like, at least reportings of it started happening. So Elizabeth reported that the monster reached through her screen window and was then chased away by Bobby and his brother. The monster later returned and attacked Bobby, throwing him onto the ground. It was clear something attacked Bobby that night. Bobby was treated for large gash wounds and mild shock at a nearby hospital. No blood oh my God. No blood was found at the Ford's home, but there were scratches on the porch and one window was damaged. There were also 3-toed footprints found in the yard. This incident is what would inspire the 1972 film, The Legend of Boggy Creek. Now, I'll show you some pictures on this thing, like once I get to them, because some of them are fucking creepy and weird as hell. In the 1960s, a boy claimed he shot at the monster. So this was the drawing or like the portrait that they made up of the boy. So I'll show you a little, and I'm gonna try and tag these in there so that way then you guys can like see them like full screen and stuff like that. But this was the drawing that they made of the creature, or the start of the story for the creature with the boy. So it's pretty creepy. That's a pretty cool sketch though. So a boy named Lynn Crabtree reported seeing the monster in 1965. According to the story, Crabtree encountered the monster while hunting. While he shot at it numerous times, nothing happened. The monster did not appear to be affected by bullets. The story was not reported at the time, but the Crabtree family came forward with the account after the widely publicized Ford family sighting. Other members of the Crabtree family claimed they also saw the monster while hunting, but did not bother taking shots like Lynn had. The monster subsides on diet of dog and chicken. So it looks like it's a weird. So from that one, it kind of looked like a Bigfoot, and this one right here kind of looks just like a dog man, I guess you could say, like walking through the water and stuff. So I don't know why I'm holding my pinky out like that, but you guys get the idea. So some of these accounts they're pretty great. There are many legends about the monster's behavior. One of the most alarming for pet and farm owners is related to its diet. Supposedly, the monster had been known to feed on live chickens and dogs. It has also been said that it occasionally eats a calf or a hog. Reports of mauled and mutilated dogs have been reported in the area, and believers in the monster cite that no hoaxer would go through that amount of effort. The monster is tall, hairy, and smelly. The monster is described as 7 to 8 foot tall. It stands on 2 legs like human or primate. It's also very heavy, estimated to be over 300 pounds. Its entire body is allegedly covered with long, thick hair. Folks who claim to have witnessed this cryptid also says that its unusually long arms and a cone-shaped head is supposedly smells awful. Now this one I thought was pretty fucking weird. Look at this. It's like got fucking weird fingers and stuff. That's probably from the movie, I would assume. I've never seen the movie. I don't know if you guys have. Maybe you have. I don't know. Tell me about it. What you think? There have been many modern sightings of the monster. The Fouke monster is definitely not a thing of the past. There are still sightings in recent history. In fact, in 2017, a husband and wife were driving at dusk near Boggy Creek. They reportedly saw a tall, hairy, human-like figure standing in the distance near the trees. The couple was unable to get a close look, but the wife claimed she did think that the creature was human. So this is my theory on this, or my thoughts on this. So basically, the first sighting was in 1970, and there might have been whispers about it before and stuff like that. But these areas, like, I don't know if you've seen like this type of like marshland and stuff like that, but it's thick and it's nasty, and most people, like, if you're driving down the highway, you're not gonna stop and try and walk into this stuff because it's just nasty woods. So to think that somebody would be out there, number one, it's probably gonna be hot as hell because you're gonna put on some big ass suit, and you're gonna be out in the woods and stuff like that. And to think that somebody would go through this kind of an effort and just kind of keep it going and keep it alive, like, unless you really have nothing else to do, like, what kind of reports? Why would people make these reports up if something like this was happening? So yeah, it's really weird. So this one was the creepiest one. So this thing is like tearing her face off. I don't know where these photos are coming from, but yeah, that's kind of fucking creepy. 3 people saw the monster dart across the highway. 3 people claimed to see the monster just 3 weeks after it terrorized the Fords in 1971. While driving, the group reportedly saw a large and hairy entity running across the highway. According to the sheriff, he considered the witnesses to be reliable people, unlikely to lie about such a situation. And then it has the article, but you can't. It's like a really old, well, from the 1970s. The article is so old you can't even see like the words on it and stuff like that. It's just very blurry. The Ford's family fear was so convincing, a constable lent them a gun. For what? The fucking kid shot at it and didn't do anything to them. Whatever actually happened that night, the Fords encountered the monster. It scared them considerably. Bobby Ford's state of shock after the incident appeared authentic to those who spoke to them. In fact, Constable Ernest lent the family a gun and ammunition for protection. Law enforcement also noted that Ford was so scared that he barreled through his front door, not even bothering to open it. Early sightings date back to the 1800s. So the early sightings of a large, hairy, and mysterious monster near Fouke, Arkansas date back to 1834. Various citizens reported seeing a large, hairy man roaming around the town. Sightings increased in the 1900s. In 1997, there were 40 reports of the monster. There have been many reports of the Fouke monster killing. There haven't been any reports of the Fouke monster killing any humans, although some have been attacked, like Bobby Ford. The monster makes some distinct noises. There are varying reports of how monsters sound. Some residents claim he sounds like a peacock. However, others have heard the monster described loud human-like roaring and screaming. One witness claims that the cryptid made a loud gong-like sound. Now, see, and I think that's probably. I mean, with a lot of videos you see and stuff like that on the internet and everything, like screams and noises in the woods at night, like they can be chalked up to, they're left open for interpretation too much. As far as, at night when you record something, like a recording of sounds in the woods, whether it be something howling, screaming, yelling, whatever it is, like unless you hear it firsthand, is the only time you can get like the full amount of what that sounds like. Because as you record these things and you save them to like a laptop, or if you save them to some sort of the iCloud or whatever, and you try and upload it to something, it's always distorted a little more. So you kind of lose the resolution and the sound of everything as you save it and you move it to something else and you save it to this and you upload that's. So it's those are always so confusing, because what somebody hears as like it happens a lot with like skinwalkers and stuff like that. Like, if you ever, like, there's this one video, I'll see if I can find it, but there's this one video of this guy, he's in like Canada or something like that, and he's riding up these trails on a dirt bike. He's by himself, and he rides up the trails, and he's having fun, he's talking, he's got a GoPro on and everything like that, and he's like, and there's a couple down trees, like nothing insane that he can't get over with his dirt bike. But he gets to one spot where he's like, well, I should stop here, but then we won't see what's on the other side. And he's joking around and stuff like that. And he kills the dirt bike. And then he hears like what sounds like a woman. And that's all you're going off of, is like it sounds like a woman or like a cat or something, like screaming. So then he says like, hey, hello, like what's going on? And then the sound of something huge, I'm talking huge, starts breaking sticks and branches and everything like that. And then he just fucking turns around and gets out of there, and he's going past like bones, Like there's bones in the middle of the road and stuff like that, and there's just like dead animals and all this stuff. It was just a really weird. And the clip was only maybe like 20-25 seconds long or something like that. But the original footage of those sounds and stuff like it is terrifying, and that's what the hardest thing is. Like when something makes noises and everything, like it can be construed as people can hear like, oh, it's a deer, or it's a squirrel running through, or it's a wolf, a coyote, whatever it is. They can be, and I think that's the hardest part where all of this is. If you don't see something but you hear it, like you can never fully understand what those things sound like or what it is, because like unless you hear like firsthand accounts, that's the only way you're really gonna get that full of like, hey, this is what it was and this is what it sounded like. It sounded like a cat, but it sounded like 10 times bigger. You know what I mean? So, but the monster spawned a hit. Oh, this is about the fucking movie. That's dumb. Like, I mean, I guess if you want to watch it, that's the name of the movie, The Legend of Bog. I would assume it's older, so it's probably the quality of it's probably not the best. Was released in 1972. Jesus Christ. I wonder what that looks like nowadays. The film spawned 5 sequels. That the last one was released in 2016. So maybe you could do that. Maybe you could look it up and see see what it is. So the alleged footprints may have been a hoax. Were the footprints of the monster taken outside the Ford's family home in 1971 authentic? According to archaeologist Dr. Frank, probably not. After studying photos of the footprints shortly after the sighting, Ford stated that Frank stated there was a 99% chance the prints were fake. He stated primates and humans always have 5 toes, while the footprints showed only 3. He also stated an ape-like creature could likely not survive the Arkansas environment. If the footprints were not real, does that mean the Ford's story itself is a hoax? While it's possible someone planned the footprints after the Fords were legitimately attacked, skepticism about the footprints certainly make their story look suspicious. Yeah, but why? What do they have to get out of it? What did they gain? They got a story of this that's on the internet. It's not like they made fucking millions of dollars. Like, what if the creature is just not like it's not a Bigfoot or it's not a dogman? Like, that's what you have to think is, like, I hate that everyone gets put in this like fucking box of everything, and if it doesn't have 5 toes, if it doesn't have 5 fingers, it can't be real. Like, because how many different anomalies are there in the animal kingdom that normality of animal species and how they look and how they act, like there's always one or two that branch off from that, and it's not the same. Like, just because at that point in time, whatever they saw or whatever footprint it was, that doesn't just because it's not normal to it's not a monkey. Well, yeah, no shit, it ain't a fucking monkey. Obviously, it's not a monkey because it doesn't look anything like one. And I don't know where the whole dogman thing was at this point in time in 1971. Maybe at that point nobody had discovered it. Maybe that's what it was. And maybe that was like the between evolution before you got the split from like a Bigfoot and like a dogman. I don't know, but like I hate when people just discount. You know what I mean? Or they try and like I get it. They're trying to base it off of what they already know, but the idea of something else being different is automatically just a lie. Like, well, it only had 3 toes, so that means it had to be fake. Like, who the fuck's gonna make a 3-toed fucking footprint? I'm like, no, like I don't fucking know. Like that'd just be a weird thing to do, in my eyes at least. I don't know. I could just be talking out of my ass. So, but yeah, so that's the Boggy Creek monster. I mean, it wasn't nothing crazy, you know what I mean? Like, but it was just one of those weird ones. Like, like I always feel like I just want to talk about whether it be like a crazy ass story or a creepy ass story, whatever it is. It's just, like if you search for it and it pops up, it is of interest to someone. And whether or not you like the subject or you like the way this story goes and stuff like that, it doesn't matter. Like it's just like that's a weird creature that started happening around 1971, and the last account of it was in 2017. So obviously, it holds some value to some people in an area. So why not just talk about it? I mean, there's not crazy like this fucking thing ain't ripping people's arms off and, breaking down houses and shit like that. It ain't doing nothing crazy like that. But I mean, it's still a creepy ass story and a creepy ass subject. So, I mean, is it a Bigfoot or is it a dogman? Who knows? It could be something. I don't fucking know. It could be something that everything evolves differently in different environments. Like in Florida, you have like what everybody sees is a skunk ape. Like the hair looks different than everything like that. But the one that I saw in Florida looked just like a regular ass, like Bigfoot. Didn't look anything different. Didn't look like it was like this thing, like this thing was raised in the South and in Florida. Like, no, it just looked like a normal, like big ass monkey. That's what it was, a strong, big ass monkey. So, but am I going to discount what everyone else is seeing as far as like the skunk ape and the smells? Like, no, because of they've seen what they thought they saw, and that's cool. But anyways, on to the next one. So let's go over this one. So this one's about two different terrifying encounters with a Bigfoot. One was a scary incident with the Salt Lake Creek monster in Lincoln, Illinois, and the other by a truck driver who approached a Bigfoot eating roadkill in southern Texas. And the story goes, I live near Lincoln, Illinois, which is located in central Illinois. It is 30 miles from the state capital, Springfield, and only 35 miles each from Bloomington, Normal, Peoria, and Decatur. It has a population of 12,000. I'm about 50 years now. But when I was a little boy, me and my family had an encounter with the Salt Creek monster. If you live in central Illinois, that is pronounced the crick, not creek. It's fucking... Technically, it is creek, and crick is not a word. But at this time, we lived out in the country, less than a quarter mile from Salt Creek. This was 2 miles outside an extremely small little village in Kenny, Illinois. My mother witnessed it cross a road right before the bridge that crossed Salt Creek. My brother had been down there night fishing and placing out night lines. My mom drove down to the bridge to get the boys and tell them to get back up to the house. It was almost 10 p.m., and they weren't going to be allowed to stay out there all night. One of my brothers told my mom they had seen Bigfoot. Her not believing them, well, you two boys get in the car and come on home. They told her they had to gather their fishing poles and gear and to please wait while they got it. They would walk back up to the house, she agreed, and waited while they did that. They started back down the road. One of my brothers was on foot and the other on his bike. As they took off, she drove towards the bridge to turn around on a little gravel drive. Right before the bridge, she had her driver's side window down. As she got to the As she got to the drive, a horrible smell of garbage mixed with rotten sewage water practically smacked her in the face through the window. In the headlights, a 6-foot-tall man-shaped thing crossed in the headlights from one side of the road to the other. It was light gray and completely hair-covered. It looked directly at the car as it passed by. She said she'll never forget those glowing yellow eyes. She said it had the hair on her arms and neck and head all stood on the end. She had never felt that scared since she turned into the drive on the right side of the road and slammed the gear shift into reverse, quickly doing a 3-point turn to go back away from the bridge and back up to the road to the house. As she went towards the house, this thing was running down the road. It was a full moon that night. The boys had been looking back as they went to where their mom was, and they saw this huge muscular man-shaped thing running in their direction. They later said they looked back because this thing must have weighed a lot, because they felt it running on the paved country road before they saw it. My brother that was on foot was scared so bad he passed my other brother on his bicycle running. Mom was freaked out because it looked like it was going after the boys. She swerved over at the creature and it jumped off to the right side of the road, down 15 feet into the deep ditch, and let out a blood-curdling scream. Everyone got back up to the house quickly to go into the house and locked all the doors and windows. They later said they could hear it walking around the house. It was thudding into the ground and breathing loudly. As it went by the windows, my sister and her best friend were sleeping out in the camper that fit in the bed of a pickup truck. They heard something walk up to the camper and circle it 5 to 6 times. They could hear deep, heavy breathing, and the dog was so scared of nothing they could. Wait, what? The dog was scared of nothing. Under the truck, whining, it slapped the side of the camper and rattled the doorknob. The two of the girls stayed completely still and even held their breath. They were trying to be so quiet after what seemed like forever, but in reality was probably only 30 to 40 seconds. They finally heard whatever it was. They never looked out any window to see it. Something thud off in the direction of Salt Creek. Sometime later, they heard something off in the distance in the same direction. They heard the thing the only moments before had been circling the camper. Jesus Christ. When was this encounter? I don't think it told you when this encounter was. It had to have been, I mean, when you live out in those kind of areas and stuff like them small rural areas, especially in like Illinois, because we lived in, before we moved here, we lived in Braidwood, and Braidwood was a really small town. And as you went further south, like it got less and less. There was less people. There was just nothing but, cornfields and trees and stuff like that. So when you get out there, there's not many lights. Is the bad part. Like here, like we live in a cul-de-sac now, and it's, street lights are prevalent here. Like you can walk throughout the night, and you can always, you might hit a couple spots where there's no lights, but for the majority of it, you can see mostly everything around you. In those kind of areas, it's very like you do rely on like your man-made lights or like the moonlight, because the moonlight will illuminate a lot of it won't give you like sense of where you are, what you can see, but it'll give you like general outlines of everything, like the trees, the roads, and stuff like that. So, and that's the only bad part about those, like these places that are like in those rural areas and you can't really see much and there's not much lighting, is you're just seeing a silhouette. And for something to be that big and to make that kind of a noise and to scare people that much, I don't know. That's a pretty terrifying thing. Like, I don't know if you could chalk that up as anything else. Like, why would somebody? Number one, you would have to think the person who, if it was a human, you would have to think that they would be out there, like trying to figure this. Like, they would have to be from that area, because you're not gonna run into these areas not knowing where you're going. It's very hard to do that. Like you can't, like I just can't go to like another subdivision and just run around at night without running into something or not knowing where the fuck you're going and stuff like that, especially with no lighting at all. So you would have to think that it had to be somebody if it was a person, or it would have to be somebody pretty big, because if you can feel like if you have an upstairs and you feel somebody jump down, you can hear the thud, boom, it hits, and you're like, oh shit, like something fell or something broke or whatever. You go check it out, and then, but to feel it like on like the earth ground, like that's a heavy fall. I mean, we have a we run like block and pavers and stuff like that. The stuff you see at like Home Depot and Lowe's and everything like that, and it's all ran by hydraulic system, and it comes down with like 75 centrifugal force of tons of pressure, and you can feel the vibration. Like up at the front office, you can feel that vibration. So to think that something is big enough to where as it runs, you can feel the thud, or at least hear the footprints as it's running. Like most people running and stuff like that, like it's a light. But if it's enough significantly to hear that thud and to be around that thud, like that's a lot of weight. So you got to think about those kind of things, or at least that's what I think about. Is on one side, how can it be a person? And on the other side, if it was a person, they would have to know X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? So that would be a hard thing for me to explain, I guess, to that point, for as far as that subject. But I don't know. I mean, you guys tell me, what do you think it was? Do you think it was one of these fucking fat ass things running around there? I can never figure this out. Like that? Or is it just a person they know? I mean, for those kinds of things and that subject, to have people who are obviously out there because they know what is going on. They're fishing late at night and stuff like that, you know. To be for something to be out there and to be that not scared of like headlights and stuff like that. Like if it was an animal and stuff, most animals at that point are scared of headlights. They'll run, or at least they'll look at it before they make a decision for what they're gonna do. But to have something like that just seems very extreme to me. Well, that's just my opinion. All right, so the next one for the Texas people. A good friend of mine told me this story years ago. He is at the stereotypical old big bad trucker. I've never seen some weird stuff with him while driving in South Texas along the border. So this brings me to a very good point. So I'm gonna go visit my dad here in like the next couple weeks, and he was a truck driver he only worked night shift. So I'm gonna take all my shit on, maybe not the video recording, but at least the audio recordings and stuff like that. And or maybe I don't know. I'll take it down there regardless, and then I want to talk to him about all this kind of weird stuff and stuff like that. It's just me and him and stuff. But I'm sure he saw a lot of weird shit, especially at like at night on like the roads and the trucks. Like that's got to be pretty crazy. But that maybe reminded me of that. Along the border, he never batted an eye. But while telling me the story, he had goosebumps and a concerned expression. From this guy is about the equivalent of trembling lip and shit-stained pants. I'll tell the story in first person as he told it to me. Years ago in the late 90s, I was on my way from the house, Central Texas, heading to Laredo to pick up a load. It was early, around 4 or 5. I had just come off a string of days at home, so I knew I wasn't tired. I'm one of those 2-lane wide roads in the absolute middle of bumfuck nowhere, when I see something on the side of the road at the edge of my high beams. At first I thought it was roadkill, as it usually is the case. As I get closer, I see that it is roadkill, and there's something crouching over the deer carcass. I remember thinking either this guy's taking the antlers as a trophy or he's fucking sick. As I get closer, still I can now see that the guy's eating the deer. He's pulling chunks of meat from the stomach and bringing them up to his face. At this point, he stops mid-motion and looks up at me, not at my truck, but at me. It stands up, and that's when I see it's huge brown, covered in hair. I remember this thing at this point. What the fuck? This thing is standing on the tiny shoulder, looking at me. By this point, maybe 3 seconds have passed, and I'm about to the point in the road he's standing at. I didn't think of stopping. In fact, I'm starting to lay on that and get the hell out of there. As I'm passing it, it looks at me again. Not at the truck. It's looking through the driver's side windshield at me. He obviously has the intelligence to know that there's a driver in here and knows where I'm sitting. As I start to pass him, I could still see its head above the hood of an old needle-nosed Pete, old truck design where the hood goes straight out from the windshield, known for being tall and difficult to see around. This thing is a fucking giant. I remember seeing what looks like a human intelligence in its eyes, and it scares the crap out of me. I mean, those are kind of like the normal stories of like Bigfoot or like dogman sightings and stuff like that. Like those are some pretty normal ones right there, because when you see those, like you got to think there's truckers on the roads throughout the entire 24 hours. There's always trucks on the road, whether it be a little bit more sometimes and less and everything like that. But especially in like those county roads that are just 2 lanes, and they're just out there to deliver something. Maybe they deliver something like every couple months or whatever it is. But those encounters are weird, and there's hundreds and thousands of encounters of people who just, as they're driving down the road, they see something off, and most of the time it's never indirect, like a deer or like a raccoon or house cat or a dog, whatever it is. Most of the time it's in the road, and that's how they usually get hit. But for most of these, like the creatures that everybody sees, they're always off to the side, like right out of the peripherals of the headlights. And that's always been weird to me, because maybe they know like, hey, this is like asphalt or this is concrete, whatever it is. And a lot of these, maybe they just don't, I don't know. They don't want to get hit. Maybe, like, I don't fucking know. But it is a little suspicious. It is very suspicious. That's for damn sure. So, now, let's switch gears a little bit. And I'll see. So, I'll post this one and we'll go. First 30 minutes was Bigfoot, Buggy Creek Monster. And then the second half is a. Now, if you've ever been on Reddit, Reddit is like the dark web of creepy ass stories, I guess. But it all being public, I guess, is probably the best way to do it. And there's no death or killings on it. But Reddit's always just a weird one. So if you ever get a chance to just look up Reddit reviews or Reddit stories or whatever it is, there's a lot of them out there. And they're pretty fucking weird. So 11 of the scariest ghost stories from Reddit. Leave the lights on when you read these bone-chilling stories of average people encountering the paranormal. First one reads, "It wasn't a little girl." Well, then what the hell was it? "I was camping with my husband and his family at a small, remote lake in New Mexico. There were about 10 people in our group and another group of 6 people in the next campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, telling stories, when we all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling out for help. Neither group had children with them, but we were all positive we were hearing a little girl and decided to search the area. We heard the noises from together. There was a field behind our campsite, and we all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from us in the field, making the noises. We all agreed this thing looked maybe 6 feet tall, skinny, and white as can be. We made our way closer to investigate, but whatever it was that we saw started backing off as we got closer, and it disappeared into the trees. All night we continued to hear a little girl calling for help as we tried to sleep." Man, fuck that. No way, bro. No way. There's 16 of you guys out there? And you guys ain't gonna go check? Like, hell no. We all 16 going. We're all with flashlights. And one of us, half of us driving a truck. I don't give a fuck. We're gonna go see what the hell it is. Because ain't no way I'm staying out there and hearing the screams of like a little girl at night. Nah. I'm either out, I'm either all in, and we're gonna go figure it out, or I'm out and we're leaving. That's it. So, The Walking Dead. I'm a psychiatric nurse. Early in my career, I worked at a residential mental health facility. One of our residents was an elective mute, which means that they didn't, wouldn't, or couldn't talk, but there were no medical reasons as to why. He had spoken earlier in his life and in fact seemed quite normal back then. With the exception of being close to 7 feet tall, he had been raised in Deep South and joined the military when he was 19. Oh, fuck, here we go. But one night he vanished. He was declared AWOL and eventually was declared missing and dead. 10 years later, a 7-foot-tall man walked into the VA hospital emergency room in my part of the Midwest and said to the receptionist, "My name is Marion Dunchie, not the real name. And I've been dead for 10 years. Those were the last words he ever spoke out. He was covered with dust and he was wearing the same clothes I'd been reported to be wearing the night he vanished. His social security number had not been used and he had no identification on his person. However, they were able to identify him, I guess via fingerprints. The family was notified, but they said they had already grieved the lost man and that whomever was claiming to be him simply could not be. They demanded not to be contacted again. Marion paced all day and every day, moving his mouth that looked like talking or muttering, but no sound came out. He had an unnerving habit of throwing his head back with his mouth wide open, as if he were laughing heartily. But not even a breath could be heard. I talked to him. He appeared to listen, periodically throwing his head back in the laughing, mimicking way of his. Various medications were tried, but they did not affect him either positively or negatively. Occupational therapy did nothing because Marion would just grin, and unless told to, he'd get up and start pacing again. On my last day at this job, the last thing I saw was Marion pacing in the parking lot, throwing his head back to laugh. Later, I wondered if all along I'd been dealing with a ghost all these years. I still don't know. That's kind of fucking creepy. The unrest stop. I was driving across country with my mom and sister when I was 16. My sister was 20. It was late, but we were all well rested, still, and alert. We were driving along an interstate and needed gas at a bathroom break, so we stopped at the only rest stop in 200 miles. There was a van full of teenagers on a road trip at this gas station, as well as a small gray car parked at the pump in front of us, with two young men standing still outside of it. When we got there, everything felt wrong. We'd been on the road for days and seen many rest stops at night, but I'd never been afraid until then. My mom and sister went inside and I stayed in the car. I heard the teenagers say they were creeped out and couldn't get the pump to work, and they left in a hurry. I was watching the car in front of me. The two men had not moved at all, not an inch. They weren't talking, they weren't on their phones, they were just standing there, still and stone. My sister and mom came running back out to the car, and when they got in, the two men slowly turned to look at us while not moving or pivoting the rest of their bodies. And I swear to fucking shit, we all saw the same thing. They had eyes dark as pitch and empty, truly empty, not black, not reflecting any light at all, just a void. We sped out of there and didn't even stop until we got to the next city. The worst thing about the entire experience, we couldn't find the place on any map. We knew exactly which spot on the interstate to look, and we couldn't find it on Google Maps or any paper we had. We even asked locals about the creepy gas station out on that stretch of the road and got only confused looks. We traveled on the interstate since, and there is no rest stop. It came for us in the graveyard. We were driving my friend's car, really old, beat-up Subaru, through a massive graveyard. We stopped and walked down a hill and came across a little pond. There was someone sitting on the rock on the other side of the pond. The figure was all black, and we couldn't make out the features other than the fact that it looked like a man who was wearing some old-style top hat. We stupidly waved and shouted hi. He didn't show any acknowledgement and continued sitting on the rock. All of a sudden, he jumped up to his feet, started running to us on the water, and then vanished in thin water about halfway out of the pond. My friends and I screamed and ran back to the car. The car wouldn't start, and we heard something banging on the back of the car. It wasn't constant bang, but every few seconds or so we'd hear it. Nobody was outside from what we could see in the dark, but something was making a noise on the car. I opened my phone and started dialing my mom to come give us a boost, but I had no service. None of us had any cell service. The next 30 minutes we spent trying to get her car started. No banging was heard afterwards, but we felt the very heavy pressure around us. Finally, the car started and she hit the pedal to the metal. We sped out of the graveyard so fast, immediately crossing the gates. All of our phones regained cell service. One thing I know for certain is that someone or something was out there, and it was not an animal or a human. It was good to see an old friend. When I was 37, I went to my high school reunion. I flew into the nearest airport and rented a car. The distance was about 35 miles through a very rural, almost abandoned part of the country. About 3 miles outside of town, I see someone on the side of the road flagging me down. It turned out that one of the guys I had on the side of the road flagging me down attended school with Jim. Not his name. Get in the car and we started talking. I hadn't seen him in 20 years, but he still looked the same, maybe a little older. We got to town and I asked him if he wanted to come to the VFW and have a drink. He said no, just take me home. Jim's parents had lived only a few blocks from my grandmother's house. And I turned in that direction, but he said to take him to the outskirts of town. There was a mobile home park out there. I figured this is where he lived. When we reached the end of the turn, he said, just drop me here. It was good to see you again, and he walks off into the night. I go to the VFW, met some of my old classmates. We started to talk. As we were talking about it, who was coming to the reunion, I mentioned that I had just picked up Jim 3 miles east of town and dropped him off. Everyone gets quiet. Even the guy singing karaoke stops and lays down the mic. My cousin goes, white as a new t-shirt. Barb, Jim died on that curve 8 years ago. Rolled his car. We were all at his funeral, I was told. I started to feel dizzy and went out to the car to take some deep breaths. There on the seat in the local newspaper, printed 8 years ago previously, containing Jim's obituary. I still have the paper. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. After we moved into our house, we were told a woman had died there at the hands of her abusive husband. She hated men. My dad would wake up with scratches all over himself, and whenever my brother was meant to see was mean to my sister or I, he would have scratches on him as well. One day my brother hurt our sister. He hit her with something. When he woke up later that night, he had a horrible bloody nose. The day we moved out, my brother accidentally broke his twin's arm trying out a new wrestling move. He swears that he would have died that night if it wasn't our last night in that house. What the fuck? Death came for him. I was standing in my parents' room, talking to my very sick dad at the time. He was dying of stage 4 esophageal cancer. I got the feeling something was behind me. I looked towards the doorway of the living room, and something about 4'6" and fully black is peeking around the corner. With its hands on the doorframe, I ran towards it and it slipped back around the door. When I go outside the doorway, there was nothing. My dad was completely confused. When I step back inside the room, when I tell him, people who stayed in my house in my dad's final days claim they have seen it. My mom saw the figure on multiple occasions in multiple places until he passed away. We haven't seen it since. My mother attracted evil. After my parents divorced when I was a teenager, I lived with my mother. I experienced lots of paranormal happenings. Several times when I was reading in my bed, the room would start to feel icy. Next, I would feel as something or somebody that hated me was staring at me. When I got that feeling, I would leave the room and come back an hour later, sometimes during the day. I would see a shadowy figure sneaking along the bedroom walls. Something in the flat was pretending to be a dog. It went into my room and heard a deep growl from under my bed. My dog wasn't capable of making this noise that deep. It sounded like either a really big dog or a man doing his best dog impression. Other times my dog would whimper and pace in the room next to mine, but wouldn't come when called, as if he was afraid of something in the hallway. When I moved in with my father, the paranormal activity stopped. Evicted by a ghost. Shortly after college, I got married. We immediately moved into a basement apartment because that was all available within our budget. The place had a poltergeist, and my wife was terrified. Whatever resided there made us clear it didn't want us to be alone. Dishes, glasses, and other items would fly off the shelf. My wife was hit several times. There was always an ominous feeling, like we were being watched. At night, when we walked through the apartments in the dark, there would be insanely bright flashes of light that would illuminate the entire room. One night, we were going to bed. As soon as my wife and I walked into the bedroom, we heard a voice from nowhere. I said loudly, "You got it, bud." We moved out 2 days later and stayed with family. The old lady who owned the place died a few months later, and the house was torn down. It's still an empty lot to this day, nothing but grass and a tree. I still drive by it every now and again. The Death March. My dad used to work as a corrective officer at a rural prison. He drove the perimeter of the property for his entire shift when he would check empty buildings for runaway inmates. It was generally a boring job. One night my dad was parked on a hill reading a magazine when he started to feel a thumping in his body. He described it as a feeling you get when you hear speakers are playing a song with really heavy bass. He put the magazine down and checked his rearview mirror when he saw someone outside the truck. God damn, that dog scared the shit out of me. Alrighty. Jesus Christ, that was a good way to break the character and the fucking silence of all this creepy ass shit. He put the magazine down and checked his rearview mirror, where he saw someone outside the truck. He grabbed his pistol and jumped out of the truck with his weapon drawn. Outside the truck, he realized it was a procession of Native Americans walking through the truck and directly through his seat, only to disappear at the exact spot he was sitting. He said it was clear they were ghosts because many of them appeared injured. They went off the woods for a few seconds and the whole procession disappeared. He called the other perimeter guy on his walkie-talkie trying to explain, and the other guy almost immediately stopped communicating. Turns out the other guy had seen this happen before, but didn't believe in ghosts, so he wouldn't talk about it. The Demon's Room. I worked as a forensic nurse in the hospital's lockup unit. We had one older lady who swore she was being haunted or abused by a demon she would call Tiberius. So many crazy things happened while she was on the unit. We'd go into the room, do normal care, leave, and seconds later she starts screaming bloody murder. We'd run into the room to find her looking like she'd been in a fight with a boxing champ. Bloody lip, black eye markings all over her body. No one ever saw her doing this stuff to herself. Things would get moved around in the room themselves. At one point, she was in protective restraints because the doctor thought she was hurting herself. There was no way she could have moved or done anything to herself while in these restraints. But new marks would appear on her tray. Card would be across the room. That was secure, so there was no way someone else was doing this. When we asked her questions, she'd just say it was Tiberius. After she was discharged, we always had trouble with that room. If there was going to be a rapid response or a code, it happens in that room. One night, a guard reported lights blinking on and off, and it was that room. Oh, man. Creepy ghost stories from Reddit. Reddit's got some weird shit too. Reddit's always got some weird shit, and you never know if Reddit is just people just want to go on there anonymously and just talk about crazy shit that's happened. But yeah, other than that, that's about it, guys, for Friday's episode. Pretty simple, pretty easy. I think it went by pretty good. The first story, the Boggy Creek, I mean, that just kind of gives you a little insight about it and stuff like that. But the other one, the Bigfoot encounters, like those are pretty creepy as shit. And then, of course, these scary ghost stories from Reddit are always fucking terrifying. Like once you get to reading these things, and it's like quiet, and you get engulfed in these things, and you hear something, like it fucking freaks you out, shit like that. But like I said, it's always fun. It's always good to talk about them. And we'll just keep going with this, going with that, and figuring it all out. So, yeah. Other than that, that's about it. I hope everyone, and I mean everyone, enjoys their weekend. I hope everybody is safe, has fun, do whatever it is you want to do. Live in today because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So, make sure you guys have fun, be polite, be kind to one another. And I will see you guys next week on probably Thursday or Friday, depending on what it is. And yeah, we'll be back with another one. So I appreciate you guys. And take care. And we'll see you on the next one, guys.
Very strange noise. Seems to be coming from some kind of an animal. It's been going on for about a minute now.